He always wakes the same way. A light inhale, like the air has just become available again. A slight blink, not like a normal person's, but deliberate, like his eyes already know. You're here, check complete. I glance at the monitor. Pulse, 64, blood pressure, stable, body temperature, a fraction below normal, everything steady. How do you feel? I ask. He turns his head, slowly, painfully slow, like he has to remember which way. His lips lift a little before he speaks. He always smiles before the first word, like speaking is a gift. They gave me the mountains again, he says. I hit record. It's part of the protocol, but honestly I do it anyway. His voice is fragile, like it's made of breath, but clear. He talks like someone who's told this story 1,000 times, and still tells it like it matters. They were warm. You get that? The rocks. Alive. You can listen to them. When I lay on the slope at night, I could hear the ground singing. I mean that. What did it sound like? Not a voice. More like if plant dreams moved through your bones. I learned the language in my second year. Year? Yeah, a year passed, 13 this time. I had a son. He died of breath fever. It's like a fever, but the dreams burn. I held him to the end. Then I went into the stone. That's how we bury people, into living rock. I type something. He stares at the ceiling. The room is quiet. Just the IV drip. And his breathing. Slow even. That was all in the dream, I ask. If you knew how that question sounds over there, he says, you wouldn't ask it. My name's Kevin. I'm 37. I'm not the type to ask unnecessary questions. My job is to observe, record, keep structure while others break. But sometimes, when he talks for too long, I catch myself remembering what he says, not clearly, not like fact, but something in my bones. Warmth under my palms, grit in my teeth, a name I forget the moment I remember it. We called them the Quiet Elders, he says. It's not a direct translation, not really words. It's more like a feeling, but close enough. The ones who've seen everything and chose not to speak. Were they alive? They were the place. You were there, I say. I don't know why I said it. He doesn't answer, just smiles. Not at me. Into the air. A light flickers in the hallway. I hear it. Doesn't matter, but I hear it. The wall clock's fast by a minute. I know, because I fixed it yesterday. Monitor, pulse stable. He closes his eyes. Let me sleep a little longer, he says. It's spring there, now. How long? 8 hours, no more. If I go over, I won't come back. I nod and stop the recording, though I'm almost sure I've heard this story before. Maybe in a dream. He came back. Different. It's not obvious at first, but if you look long enough, you notice the shift. The first 30 seconds, he lay there silently, just like always, eyes closed, breathing steady, arms at his sides like someone just pulled from a capsule. Then, as if remembering where he was, he opened his eyes slowly and stared at the ceiling. Usually in those first moments, he looked emptied out, like he had just run through something incomprehensibly vast. But not today. Today he looked focused, like he knew he was being watched, like he remembered this room, this protocol, like he knew, you've just woken up, say your lines. He turned to face me, calmly, even confidently. It was a desert today, but not Earth's. The dust doesn't settle there, it just hangs, and you don't see the sun, only its voice. I didn't interrupt. I learned early that if you cut him off, he either loses the thread or pretends to. There was a tribe, small. They call themselves the sleep deaf. They don't have ears, but they can hear your thoughts, only if you don't trust them. He said it like someone remembering the subway ride home, not like someone describing an alien culture. And honestly, I'm not sure it was alien. I logged it. Speech coherent, increased confidence, no sign of narrative doubt. But then I noticed something else. He wasn't just describing these other places, he was starting to think in their grammar. These walls would be sacred to the southern leaves, he muttered, glancing around the room. You sit like they do, on the Council of the Premature. I didn't ask who the southern leaves were. I didn't ask about the council, because I knew if I did, he'd answer, and worse, I'd understand, and once that happened, I wouldn't know where his fiction ends and whose memories begin. He started holding his hands differently. They used to always rest, palm down. Now, palms up, sometimes making gestures like he was touching something invisible, like air had texture, more real than us. His walk changed too, slower, not from fatigue, from intent. Each step, like a negotiation with space itself. One day he said, "Your voice is trembling today." I said no, it wasn't. He replied, "Here, sound lags behind intention, I remember that." He doesn't change every time. Sometimes he returns, as we know him. Gentle, distant, with eyes that hold foreign skies. But sometimes, he comes back with a different accent, a different bite, a voice that resonates wrong, like it isn't a voice, but something else echoing through it. Once, I caught him scribbling a name in his notebook, illegible, but in Latin characters. When I tried to read it, I felt a strange flicker, like I almost remembered the language. I didn't include that in the reports, because I'm not sure what's happening anymore. Today he said, "You'll become like me." Who? Me? I didn't argue, because in that moment, standing in front of him, I realized I couldn't feel my shadow, like it was still out there, somewhere I'd already been. Sometimes I lose time. It happens. It's not a big deal. You assume you just drifted off, but then you notice the page in your hand is already filled, the coffee cup is empty, and the light in the room has changed. But lately, it's happening more often, and not for seconds, for hours. This morning I came into the lab like always. 8:02. I remember scanning my badge at the door, nodding to security, walking past reception. The next thing I know, I'm already in the observation room. Time, 10:46. The patient is asleep. The monitor shows the session has already begun. Vitals are logging. I check the access log. Entry timestamp, 08:14, under my ID. The audio log? My voice, the protocol, already in motion. But I don't remember any of it. I listen to the recording. I sound calm, asking questions. He responds clearly as always. But then at one point he says, "Don't hold on. In this world you're a guest. We just met earlier than we were supposed to." I don't know what he means, but it feels like he's not speaking in the dream. He's speaking now. That evening I find a sheet of paper at home, my handwriting, but the text, not mine. Cycle 3. Layer is fluid. Transition approved. Prints match. I don't know what it means, but the word prints triggers a strange pressure in my chest. I go to the bathroom, look at my hands, and notice, on the inside of my left index finger, a thin scar, like something had been implanted there. I don't remember that injury, but my brain doesn't fight it, it accepts it. The next day I read his latest report. Handwritten, clean paper, perfect penmanship. Topic: a city beneath the planet's skin. Creatures without eyes that see through contact with the Earth's memory. At the bottom of the page, he wrote, "I walked beneath the stone arches, and someone whispered, 'He'll wake soon, but not here.'" I read it twice. And again. I remember reading this before. But not here, in a dream, or somewhere else. I decide to ask him directly. "Why am I forgetting?" He looks away toward the wall. Silence. Then, "Because you agreed." Agreed to what? To the role, to the entry point, to the outer loop. He pauses. "You're just not ready to remember." Lately I feel like I'm remembering things that haven't happened yet. I know what he's about to say, before he says it. I know which dream he'll describe today. I know the change in his behavior before it starts. I can't explain how I know. Today I wrote down a dream, woke up shivering, with the sense that I had lived a long time somewhere else. There was an iron forest, words bloomed like flowers, and someone called me by a name that wasn't Kevin, but I turned anyway. I wrote down every detail, then I opened one of his old protocols from 2 weeks ago. Same scene, same lines. Even my voice, responding, "I'm here. I hear you." I sit in silence. The room is empty, but I know he's not asleep. He's watching me, from there. And sometimes, I wonder, what if this entire time, he's the one observing me, not the other way around? He opened his eyes, and immediately said my name, Ilar, calmly, as if we were simply picking up where we left off. I was standing in the doorway, tablet in hand, mind blank. "Excuse me, you're Ilar again, in this cycle. You were Kavo before, you chose it, to make things easier." I didn't respond. I could feel it. He wasn't joking, and he wasn't delusional. He said that name with no effort, no hesitation, like it was obvious. I didn't ask how he knew it, because the moment he said it, I remembered it too. Not as a memory, as recognition. Like a password you don't recall, but your fingers type it anyway. I sat down across from him. My hands trembled slightly. My eyelids felt heavy, even though I hadn't slept. You think you're observing, but observation is a form of participation, and participation is always mutual. He spoke like a teacher or an elder, even though he looked the same, young, calm, physically fragile. "What are you saying?" I asked. He smiled, for the first time sadly. "You think you're a person. You think you're in a lab, but that's just another layer, a more consistent one, slower." He turned his head toward the window. The light fell at an odd angle, even though the sun should have been higher. The shadow from his hand was reaching upward, not down. I blinked. The shadow corrected itself. That day I found an old notebook in my closet. I don't remember putting it there. It smelled like mold and sunlight, an impossible combination. Inside, handwritten lines, my handwriting, but the language was the one from his descriptions. Some words I could understand, not by logic, but by feeling. Retkale, remember, you're here only once, the rest is reflection. I don't know what Retkale means, but in a dream that night, I said it aloud, and woke up with the taste of iron in my mouth. The next day, a new protocol appeared in the system. Author, me. Date, tomorrow. It described a conversation that hadn't happened yet. He'll ask, "Did you come for an answer or permission?" I'll reply, "I don't remember whose dream I'm in right now." Conclusion. If you want to leave, you first have to remember who you're replacing. I read it 6 times, then closed the laptop, then opened it again. The protocol was gone. When I walked into the observation room, he was already sitting up, not lying down, not wired to anything, just sitting on the bed, waiting. I wanted to ask a question, any question, but my throat was empty, like a vessel with nothing inside. Instead I said, "What day is it?" He looked at me with sympathy. "Day 1, always." At first, I started hearing his voice, not in my head, in other people's. A colleague said to me, "You're not in that time anymore, only your body is." Word for word, something he'd said 2 months ago, after a dream session. I had transcribed it myself. I asked, "What did you just say?" The colleague just shrugged, like he hadn't noticed, and walked away. An hour later, the security guard at the entrance handed me my badge and said, "You're getting more transparent. It's starting to settle." He smiled, like he always did, casual. I looked into his eyes, and he looked normal, but something inside, it felt like something else was looking at me through him. Fragments started appearing in the protocols that weren't there before. Audio logs from observation sessions. My voice, speaking words I never remember saying. Have you been to the gray void? I couldn't survive there, but you could. I replayed the file 5, 6, 10 times. It was my tone, my cadence, my pauses, but I have no memory of those lines. One day I found myself listed in the patient archive. Not my name, not my photo, but my voice. A segment, a patient describing a conversation in a city where the wind knows names. He was standing by the wall. His eyes were blue. He asked me why I wasn't afraid, and I said, "Because you're me," just before the waking. I listened. I remembered that conversation. I remembered that city. I remembered the wind, speaking my name. I just don't know when it happened. I no longer understand when I'm asleep. When I close my eyes, I don't see darkness. I see other scenes, rooms that don't exist, people I don't know, but feel deeply familiar. Sometimes I hear someone breathing beside me, but I'm alone. Sometimes I write down words I don't understand, and later find them in the patient's dream logs from weeks ago. Today, he said, "That's it. You're inside now." Inside what? The dream. Mine or yours. Doesn't matter anymore. He reached out, a soft motion, like touching the air. "Why me?" I asked. He thought for a moment. "Because you were the first one who didn't try to prove you were awake." I don't know anymore who's lying in the capsule. I don't know who's doing the watching. Feels like I've become a role someone else is playing just to keep the dream alive after waking. Yesterday, I heard my name again. Not Kevin, not Doctor. The other one, Ilar, from a stranger. A girl passing me on the street. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Then she said, "You've forgotten again, haven't you?" and walked away. I don't go to work anymore. There's no need. No one calls, no one looks for me, no one asks. And honestly, I'm not even sure the lab exists outside of me anymore. Sometimes I walk down the street, and it just appears around the corner. Sometimes I enter an apartment building, and instead of my flat, it's the observation room. The soft light, the quiet voices behind the glass. He's always there, sitting or standing by the window, or lying down. Doesn't matter. He's there. He's always been there. He doesn't speak aloud anymore, but I know what he wants to say. We're no longer two people. We're two phases of the same thing. One morning I wake up in a room that never existed. The floor is smooth, almost liquid. The air smells like electricity. Beyond the walls, a slow pulse of flickering, like a thunderstorm far, far away. There are symbols on the wall. I read them like you read your favorite book from childhood, not translating, just knowing. They say, "Nothing ever started here, and nothing ever ended. This is the holding place." I don't remember the faces of the people I used to work with. I don't remember where the hallway of dreams ended, or where the observation room began. I'm not sure I ever wrote a report. I'm not sure I ever actually woke up. Sometimes I dream his dreams. He walks through a city built from language. He speaks to beings whose names shift their shape. He stands by a fire where the flames show memories of other bodies. He turns, and I see myself through his eyes. In that dream, I am him. But he is also me. We're just positions, different angles of the same spiral. And I realize I was never the researcher. I was the bridge, the crossing. A role that needed to be played so the dream could continue. Here, now I observe, a new body, a new voice. He sleeps, deeply, peacefully, and I wait for him to wake up. With a new name, a new face, and memories of a world that doesn't exist here. I'll ask, "How are you feeling today? What did you see?" And he'll tell me, and I'll remember, because the dream is still going, and I am inside it, now and forever. If you made it all the way to the end, then you're exactly the kind of person I'm looking for. Hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot to me. I hope I can keep bringing you more stories, to make you smile, or maybe, to scare you.